You are not behind. That thought alone may feel unfamiliar, because for a long time you've been carrying the quiet belief that somehow you missed something, that others figured money out faster, that you started too late. Maybe you didn't push hard enough, sacrifice enough, or want it badly enough. But pause for a moment. If you were truly behind, you wouldn't be asking these questions. You wouldn't feel this tension between effort and outcome. You wouldn't sense that strange gap between how much you give and how little control you feel. Confusion is not failure. Confusion is often the first sign that an illusion is cracking. You live in a world that praises motion, busy calendars, long hours, constant striving, and you've learned to equate movement with progress, noise with importance, stress with worth. So you keep going, you optimize your days, you try to be responsible, you do what makes sense on the surface. Yet the moment you slow down, even briefly, you notice it. That uneasy realization that everything you've built still depends on you showing up again tomorrow. That if you step away, the system does not hold. It waits, silently, for you to return. That realization is not accidental, it is structural, because the game you are playing was never meant to collapse loudly. It was designed to feel reasonable, logical, even fair. It keeps you just comfortable enough to stay engaged and just uncertain enough to keep chasing the next milestone. You are not taught to question this. You are taught to normalize it. But money does not operate on motivation, morality, or effort. It responds to structure, to leverage, to position. And once you begin to see that, something irreversible happens. You can no longer unsee it. This is not about becoming rich overnight. It is about understanding why some people stop worrying about money while others never do, no matter how hard they work. The difference is not intelligence, it is not luck, and it is not discipline. The difference is the game they are playing. Most people are trapped inside rules they mistake for reality. They assume instability is normal, that constant effort is required, that stress is the price of survival. And so they build lives that demand continuous input, never asking what happens when that input stops. You feel the weight of that question because you are starting to see beyond it. This audiobook is not here to excite you. It is here to recalibrate you, to slow your thinking down enough to notice the patterns you've been moving inside without realizing it, to show you why money feels confusing only until the rules are revealed and painfully obvious after. Once you understand the game, urgency loses its grip. Comparison fades. You stop measuring yourself against people who are running entirely different races. And for the first time, money stops feeling like a moving target and starts feeling like a system you can actually observe. Not control instantly, not dominate aggressively, but understand clearly. And clarity is dangerous, in the best possible way. Because when you see how the game is structured, you stop blaming yourself for outcomes that were never designed to be different. You stop trying to win by effort alone. You stop exhausting yourself inside someone else's framework. You begin to ask better questions, quieter questions, more powerful ones. This is where the game plan begins. Not with action, not with hustle, but with sight. And once you see the game for what it is, you will never play money the same way again. Rule 1. If you trade time for money, you're playing the wrong game. You live inside a simple equation that feels so familiar, you almost never question it. You give hours, you receive money. The more hours you give, the more money you expect to earn. This logic is taught early, repeated often, and reinforced everywhere. It sounds fair, it sounds practical, and for most people, it quietly becomes the foundation of their entire financial life. But here is what no one tells you. The moment your income depends entirely on your time, your future becomes mathematically limited. You can work harder, you can work longer, you can become more efficient, yet the equation never truly changes. There are only so many hours in a day, and you are permanently attached to them. When you show up, money flows. When you stop, It doesn't. This is not a personal failure. It is the structure of the game. You are taught to see time as something to use wisely, but never as something that quietly controls you. Every schedule, every deadline, every obligation tightens that control a little more. Over time, you may earn more, but you also become more expensive to yourself. Your lifestyle grows, your responsibilities expand, and the system you rely on becomes harder and harder to step away from. This is why so many capable, intelligent, hardworking people feel trapped without knowing why. You're not lazy, you're not undisciplined, you're not doing it wrong. You are simply playing a game where freedom is not one of the possible outcomes. When you trade time for money, you are rewarded for availability, not leverage. You are valued for being present, not for creating something that continues when you are gone. The system does not ask whether you are building anything durable. It only asks one question, over and over again. Can you show up tomorrow? And you probably can, which is exactly the problem, because as long as you can keep showing up, there is no pressure for the game to change. It keeps running. Smoothly, quietly, reliably. It pays just enough to feel necessary and just enough to feel responsible. And slowly, it convinces you that stability is the same thing as security. It isn't. Security that depends on constant effort is fragile. It looks solid only when nothing interrupts it. The moment you slow down, get sick, feel burned out, or simply want space, the weakness becomes visible. Not dramatically, not all at once, but enough to remind you that everything still depends on you being there. This is the hidden cost of time-based income. You're not just selling hours, you're accepting a structure where absence has consequences, where rest feels risky, where stepping away feels like falling behind. Even when things are going well, there is a quiet tension underneath it all, because you know, deep down, that the moment you stop, the flow stops too. You may tell yourself this is just how life works, that everyone lives this way, that this is what being an adult looks like. But that belief is part of the game. It keeps you focused on surviving inside the rules instead of questioning who those rules actually serve. Time-based income is predictable, and predictability is useful to the system, not to you. The game rewards those who can be counted on, those who are reliable, those who show up no matter how they feel. Over time, you begin to internalize this. You start measuring your value by your availability. You feel guilty when you rest, anxious when you disconnect. You become good at sustaining the machine even as it quietly consumes your attention and energy. None of this happens because you made bad choices. It happens because the game is designed this way. It does not collapse loudly. It does not trap you suddenly. It tightens slowly, through responsibility, comfort, and routine. It gives you reasons to stay. Bills, expectations, a lifestyle that depends on continuation. And as your income increases, the game adapts. Expenses rise to meet it. Commitments multiply. The pressure remains, even as the numbers grow. This is why earning more does not automatically create peace. The structure stays the same, only the scale changes. More money, same dependency. At some point, you begin to sense this without fully naming it. You feel uneasy when you stop working. You check messages when you promised yourself you wouldn't. You plan your freedom around returning. Not because you love the game, but because leaving it feels dangerous. This rule is not meant to discourage you. It is meant to clarify what has been invisible. You were never wrong for playing this game. It was the only one you were shown. But once you see the limits of trading time for money, something important shifts. You stop blaming yourself for feeling stuck. You stop assuming you need more motivation. You stop thinking exhaustion is a character flaw. You begin to see that the problem is not effort. The problem is making effort the only source of income. A system where nothing grows unless you are present, where progress requires constant maintenance, where time is the primary input and also the ultimate constraint. That is not freedom, that is perpetual upkeep. Understanding this rule does not demand immediate action. It simply changes how you see the board. You begin asking quieter, more powerful questions. What continues without me? What grows while I am absent? What is not directly tied to my hours? Those questions belong to a different game, and once they appear, the old game loses its illusion of inevitability. You realize it was never the only option, just the most common one. Seeing that truth does not make you reckless. It makes you aware. And awareness is the first real advantage you have ever had in this game. Rule 2. The game is designed to keep you busy, not free. You were taught to respect busyness long before you understood what it costs. Full calendars are praised. Long hours are admired. Being swamped is treated as proof that you matter. And without realizing it, you begin to associate constant activity with progress, movement with success, and exhaustion with purpose. So you stay busy. You fill your days, you optimize your routines, you stack responsibilities on top of responsibilities, and on the surface, it looks like momentum. It feels like you are moving forward, but underneath that motion, something quieter is happening. You are being kept inside a rhythm that leaves very little room to think beyond the next task. This is not accidental. The game you are playing does not collapse loudly. It does not trap you with force. It keeps you occupied. It rewards responsiveness. It trains you to solve what is directly in front of you while ignoring the structure you are operating inside. And as long as you are busy, you rarely question whether the direction itself makes sense. Busyness feels productive because it produces immediate feedback. Tasks get completed. Messages get answered. Problems get resolved. Each small action gives you a sense of usefulness. But usefulness is not the same as freedom, and activity is not the same as progress. The game understands this distinction very well. A busy person is easier to manage than a free one. When your attention is consumed by deadlines and obligations, you have little energy left to step back and ask uncomfortable questions. Questions like why everything depends on you, or why stability always seems to require more effort, or why relief never quite arrives, no matter how much you accomplish. Instead, you move from one responsibility to the next. The system encourages this. It praises efficiency. It celebrates hustle. It frames rest as something you earn after everything else is done, knowing very well that everything is never done. There is always another task, another email, another demand waiting. And so the cycle continues. You begin to measure your value by how needed you are. If people rely on you, you must be doing something right. If your absence creates problems, you must be important. This feels validating, but it also creates a quiet dependency. The more indispensable you become, the harder it is to step away. This is how busyness disguises itself as security. But security built on constant motion is unstable. It requires you to keep moving, to stay engaged, to remain available. The moment you slow down, the cracks begin to show. Things pile up. Opportunities pause. Income feels uncertain. Not because you failed, but because the structure was never designed to function without your continuous input. You may tell yourself this is just ambition, that this is what driven people do. But notice how rarely this drive leads to spaciousness, how rarely it creates a sense of arrival. No matter how much you achieve, there is always another level of effort required to maintain it. This is not coincidence, it is design. The game rewards those who are responsive, not those who are reflective. It benefits from your focus being placed on short-term execution rather than long-term positioning. When you are busy solving immediate problems, you are not redesigning the system that creates them, and the game prefers it that way. Busyness keeps you inside the loop. It keeps you from noticing how little actually changes. Days fill up. Weeks disappear. Years pass. And while you may improve your circumstances, the underlying dependency remains. Your life still requires your constant presence to function. This is why rest can feel uncomfortable. When you finally stop, even briefly, your mind doesn't relax. It scans for what might go wrong. It anticipates consequences. It worries about falling behind. This anxiety is not personal weakness. It is the residue of a system that trained you to equate absence with risk. A free system does not punish pause. A busy system does. The game does not need you exhausted, but it benefits when you are occupied. Occupied people do not challenge assumptions. They do not rethink foundations. They focus on keeping things running. And running things feels responsible, even when those things are running you. Over time, this becomes normal. You stop questioning the pace. You accept stress as a permanent background condition. You build an identity around being on. And because everyone else is doing the same, it feels unavoidable. But it isn't. The truth is, a life that requires constant busyness is fragile. It looks impressive while you're inside it, but it has no margin. No room for interruption, no space for choice. Freedom requires slack. It requires systems that do not demand your full attention at all times. The game rarely teaches this, because slack reduces control. A person with time to think begins to see patterns. A person with space begins to notice leverage. And once that happens, busyness loses its authority. This rule is not asking you to do less immediately. It is asking you to see clearly, to recognize that being busy is not evidence of moving in the right direction. That constant motion can coexist with stagnation. That a full calendar can hide a narrow path. When you understand this, something subtle changes. You stop glorifying exhaustion. You become suspicious of urgency. You notice when activity is being used as a substitute for progress, and slowly, the grip of busyness loosens. Because the game only works as long as you stay distracted by motion. The moment you see that, you are no longer just busy, you are aware. And awareness is the first step toward stepping out of a game that never intended to let you rest. Rule 3. Wealth comes from ownership, not income. You are taught to chase income as if it were the finish line. Higher pay, bigger numbers, more stability, and on the surface, this makes sense. Income feels tangible. It arrives regularly. It solves immediate problems. It gives you a sense of movement and reassurance that you are doing something right. But income was never meant to make you free. It was meant to keep you playing. Income is movement, not position. It flows through your life, pays your expenses, and then disappears. It helps you survive, but it does not change your standing in the game. You can earn more and still feel just as dependent as before, because nothing fundamentally shifts beneath you. Ownership is different. Ownership changes the direction of value. Instead of flowing through you and vanishing, value accumulates. It stays, it compounds, it continues even when your attention is elsewhere. And this difference, subtle at first, is what separates those who eventually step out of financial pressure from those who remain inside it indefinitely. The game rarely emphasizes this distinction because income feels safer. It is familiar. It is socially approved. Ownership, by contrast, feels abstract, slower, less obvious. It does not always reward you immediately, which makes it easy to ignore when you are focused on short-term needs. So you chase income, you negotiate raises, you switch roles, you optimize skills for higher pay, and each improvement feels like progress. But notice what does not change. Your presence is still required. Your time is still the gate through which money must pass. The system still pauses when you do. Income rises, but dependency remains. This is why so many high earners feel surprisingly constrained. From the outside, they look successful. From the inside, they feel pressure. More responsibility, more expectation, more to maintain. Income expands the surface area of life, but ownership reshapes its foundation. Ownership is not about control in the aggressive sense. It is about continuity. It is about having something that does not reset to zero every morning. Something that does not ask, "Are you here?" before it functions. When you own something, an asset, a system, equity, intellectual leverage, you shift from being paid for effort to being rewarded for structure. The game begins to treat you differently, not because you work harder, but because your role changes. Income pays you once. Ownership pays you repeatedly. This is the part most people misunderstand. They assume ownership is about scale or wealth thresholds, when in reality, it is about orientation. Even small forms of ownership alter how money behaves in your life. They introduce delay, compounding, and separation between time and reward, and that separation is everything. The game encourages you to confuse earning with building. Earning feels active. Building feels slow. Earning gives feedback quickly. Building often gives nothing for a while. Because humans are wired to respond to immediate rewards, income becomes addictive. You learn to prioritize what pays now over what persists later. The system benefits from this bias. When you focus on income alone, you remain inside a loop of exchange. When you focus on ownership, you step into accumulation. The first requires constant effort. The second requires patience, but offers durability in return. This is why ownership often looks boring, quiet, uneventful. There are no dramatic spikes, no applause, no visible hustle, just gradual reinforcement. Over time, something solid begins to form, almost unnoticed. But boring is powerful. Ownership does not need your attention every moment. It does not demand your energy in exchange for survival. It allows space, and space is where freedom begins to emerge. The game rarely celebrates this, because ownership reduces dependency. A person who owns does not panic at every interruption. They do not collapse when income fluctuates. They can afford to wait, to think, to choose. And choice is dangerous to a system built on urgency. You may tell yourself that ownership is for later, that you need more income first, that now is not the right time. These thoughts feel practical, but they quietly reinforce the same dependency you already feel. The longer ownership is postponed, the longer income remains the sole pillar holding everything up. And a single pillar is always fragile. Ownership does not eliminate effort, but it changes where effort goes. Instead of feeding consumption, effort feeds construction. Instead of disappearing, it stays embedded in something that continues. This shift is subtle, but it changes how you experience money. You stop chasing relief. You start building resilience. The game does not stop you from owning. It simply makes income so consuming that ownership feels inconvenient. It fills your time, your attention, and your emotional bandwidth until long-term thinking feels like a luxury. Seeing this clearly is not about making drastic moves. It is about recognizing why income alone never feels enough. Why raises do not bring peace. Why stability always feels temporary. Because income supports life. Ownership supports freedom. Once you understand this rule, you stop measuring progress by how much you earn and start noticing what remains, what compounds, what exists independently of you. That awareness does not demand immediate action, but it permanently changes your orientation. You begin to see income as fuel, not destination. Ownership becomes the quiet objective, even if it starts small. And with that shift, the game slowly begins to change. Not because you escaped it overnight, but because you are no longer mistaking motion for position. And in this game, position is what determines everything. Rule 4. Money is a game of rules, not effort. You were trained to believe that effort is the deciding factor, that if you try harder, stay disciplined, and push through resistance, money will eventually respond. This belief feels comforting because it puts control in your hands. If results depend on effort, then more effort should solve the problem. But effort has never been the deciding variable. Rules have. Effort only matters inside the rules of the game you are playing. When the rules are unfavorable, effort simply keeps you active inside a structure that does not reward you the way you expect. This is why two people can work equally hard and end up with completely different financial outcomes. The difference is not character. It is not discipline. It is the rule set they are operating under. You can push harder inside a broken system and still remain stuck. In fact, effort often makes the trap more convincing. The harder you try, the more you assume the problem must be you. You interpret lack of results as a personal failure rather than a structural one. This is how the game protects itself. Rules operate quietly. They do not announce themselves. They shape outcomes invisibly, like gravity. You do not feel them directly, but you experience their effects constantly. When you misunderstand the rules, you misattribute cause. You believe effort creates wealth, when in reality, effort is only one input among many. Money follows patterns. Those patterns are governed by rules. Rules about leverage, rules about scalability, rules about ownership, timing, and positioning. Effort alone does not override these. It never has. This is why some people appear to move forward with less strain. They are not smarter. They are not more motivated. They simply stopped treating effort as the primary driver and started aligning with how the game actually works. Their actions look calm because the rules are doing most of the work. You, on the other hand, were taught to focus on input. Hours worked, energy spent, sacrifice made. These are easy to measure, so they become the metrics of success. But the game does not reward inputs. It rewards alignment with its rules. Effort without alignment creates exhaustion. Alignment with the rules creates momentum. The system rarely explains this because rules are not obvious until you step back. As long as you stay busy, you do not have the distance required to see them. You're too close to the work, too invested in the routine, too focused on surviving the day. Rules reveal themselves only when you slow down enough to observe outcomes instead of activity. This is why effort can feel so frustrating. You do everything you were told to do, yet the result never quite matches the promise. You improve your skills, extend your hours, take on more responsibility, and still feel capped. The game allows improvement, but it does not allow escape through effort alone. That ceiling is not there to punish you. It is there to maintain order. Rules define what is possible within a system. If you never learn them, you spend your life testing the boundaries through trial and error, mistaking resistance for weakness. You believe the answer is always more force, never a different approach. But force is irrelevant to rules. You cannot outwork gravity. You cannot out-effort leverage. You cannot hustle your way around structure. This is why the game appears unfair only when you misunderstand it. Once you see the rules, the outcomes make sense. Not emotionally, but mechanically. You stop asking why effort is not enough and start asking what effort is being applied to. This shift is subtle, but powerful. You move from proving yourself to positioning yourself, from trying harder to placing effort where it multiplies. The game does not resist effort. It simply ignores effort that is applied in the wrong direction. And because you were never taught this distinction, you assumed effort itself was the goal. It is not. Effort is a tool. Rules determines whether that tool produces results. Most people never learn this because learning rules requires humility. It requires admitting that trying harder was never the answer. That realization can feel uncomfortable, even threatening. But it is also freeing. Because once you understand that money is governed by rules, not effort, you stop turning frustration inward. You stop blaming yourself. You stop measuring your worth by how tired you are. You begin to see the game clearly, And clarity changes how you play. You do not abandon effort. You redirect it. You apply it where rules amplify it instead of cancel it out. You stop feeding systems that consume effort endlessly and start noticing structures that reward alignment. This does not happen overnight. It does not need to. Awareness alone begins to loosen the grip of the old belief. The belief that effort is the answer to everything. The belief that exhaustion is noble. The belief that struggle is proof you are on the right path. Struggle is often proof you are misaligned. The game does not care how hard you try. It responds only to how well you understand its rules. Once you accept that, the pressure eases. You stop fighting the system blindly. You start observing it. And observation is the first step toward playing with intention instead of force. You are no longer guessing. You are no longer proving. You are learning the rules. And in this game, that changes everything. Rule 5. Assets are quiet, boring, and powerful. You are taught to associate success with visibility. Progress should look busy. Wealth should look impressive. If something matters, it should demand attention, create excitement, and signal its presence loudly. This belief is reinforced everywhere, by media, by social comparison, by the constant display of activity that surrounds you. But real assets rarely announce themselves. Assets are quiet by nature. They do not demand constant involvement. They do not need daily validation. And because of that, they are easy to overlook, especially in a world that equates noise with importance. This is one of the most misunderstood rules of the game. Most people imagine wealth as something dynamic and dramatic. Fast movement, big decisions, visible wins. But the structures that actually produce long-term stability tend to look uneventful from the outside. They grow slowly. They repeat predictably. They compound without requiring applause. And that is precisely why they work. An asset does not ask for your attention every day. It does not collapse when you look away. It does not require constant energy to justify its existence. Instead, it performs a simple function. It continues. That continuity is what separates assets from effort. The game rarely highlights this distinction because quiet things do not feel urgent. They do not trigger excitement. They do not provide immediate feedback. And when you are trained to respond to urgency, anything slow begins to feel irrelevant. So you gravitate toward what feels active. You prioritize tasks that keep you engaged. You chase opportunities that respond quickly. You measure progress by movement. Meanwhile, assets operate in the background, accumulating value while attention is elsewhere. They are not impressive in the short term, which makes them easy to dismiss. But over time, their presence reshapes your entire relationship with money. Assets are boring because they remove drama. They do not need you to react constantly. They do not pull you into daily decision-making. They reduce volatility, not amplify it. And in a game built on urgency and distraction, boredom is a form of power. This is uncomfortable to accept at first. You may feel that if something does not demand effort, it cannot be valuable. That belief comes from a lifetime of being rewarded for activity. But activity and value are not the same thing. Effort creates motion. Assets create continuity. When something continues without you, it changes the balance of power. You are no longer the single point of failure. You are no longer required for every outcome. That shift may feel subtle, but its effects compound quietly over time. This is why real assets rarely look exciting. They are designed to remove friction, not create it. They are meant to be dependable, not dramatic. And because they do not stimulate constant engagement, they feel almost invisible compared to more demanding pursuits. The game benefits when you overlook this. When you focus on what feels urgent, you remain occupied. When you focus on what is loud, you miss what is stable. Assets reduce dependency, and reduced dependency weakens the hold of urgency. That is why the game celebrates hustle more than structure. Hustle keeps you involved. Structure keeps you free. Assets do not need to be large to be effective. They need to be repeatable. Something that works the same way tomorrow as it does today. Something that does not reset when your attention shifts. This could be a system, a skill embedded in leverage, or a form of ownership that persists beyond your presence. What matters is not scale, but behavior. An asset behaves differently from effort. It does not ask, "Are you here?" before it functions. It does not pause to wait for your energy. It simply operates, steadily and predictably. This predictability is not boring in outcome. It is a boring process. And that distinction matters. The game conditions you to seek stimulation, to feel productive only when something is happening. Assets challenge that conditioning. They reward patience. They reward consistency. They reward the ability to tolerate periods where nothing appears to be changing. Most people abandon this phase too early. They assume that if something is not producing immediate results, it must not be working. They pull their attention away. They return to what feels active. And in doing so, they reset progress again and again, never allowing continuity to take hold. Assets require trust in the process. Not blind trust, but structural trust. Trust that repetition produces stability. Trust that consistency outperforms intensity. This is why assets are powerful. They shift your role from participant to position holder. You are no longer constantly reacting. You are allowing structures to do what they were designed to do. The game rarely teaches this because assets reduce dependence on constant participation. A person with assets does not panic at every fluctuation. They do not feel compelled to chase every opportunity. They can afford to wait, to observe, to choose. Choice is quiet. Urgency is loud. Assets give you choice. You may feel resistance to this idea because boredom feels like stagnation when you are conditioned to equate movement with progress. But stagnation is the lack of movement without accumulation. Assets accumulate even when movement is minimal. That accumulation changes how money behaves in your life. You stop feeling pressure to constantly perform. You stop measuring value by effort alone. You start noticing what continues. This rule is not asking you to abandon ambition. It is asking you to redefine what progress looks like, to recognize that the most powerful things in the game rarely demand your attention. They work precisely because they do not. Once you understand this, you become less impressed by noise and more interested in durability. You stop chasing excitement and start noticing stability. And over time, that shift quietly alters everything. Because in a game obsessed with movement, the player who builds something that stands still and keeps working holds the real advantage. Rule 6. The game rewards patience more than intelligence. You are taught to admire intelligence, quick thinking, sharp decisions, the ability to move fast and stay ahead. From school to work, speed is rewarded. The person with the answer first is praised. The one who reacts quickly is seen as capable. Over time, you begin to believe that being smart means acting fast. But the money game does not reward speed. It rewards staying power. Intelligence helps you understand possibilities, but patience determines which possibilities actually materialize. The game is structured in a way that quietly favors those who can wait, endure uncertainty, and remain consistent long after excitement fades. This is deeply uncomfortable for most people. You want progress to feel obvious. You want feedback to arrive quickly. You want reassurance that you are moving in the right direction, and when that reassurance does not come, doubt creeps in. You begin to question yourself, your choices, and your capacity. The game knows this. Most people do not lose because they make catastrophic mistakes. They lose because they exit too early. They abandon structures that were beginning to work because nothing dramatic was happening yet. They confuse silence with failure. Patience is not passive waiting, it is active endurance. It is the ability to continue when there is no applause, no urgency, and no immediate reward. And because this feels unnatural in a fast feedback world, very few people develop it. The game quietly filters participants through this discomfort. Those who need constant confirmation fall away. Those who require visible progress get restless. Those who equate movement with success abandon positions that would have paid off if left alone. Over time, what remains are not the most intelligent players, but the most patient ones. This is why outcomes can feel unfair. You may look at others and assume they were smarter, luckier, or better positioned. But often, the difference was simpler. They stayed. They allowed time to do the work that effort alone could not. Compounding does not reward brilliance. It rewards consistency. Small advantages, applied repeatedly over long periods, become decisive. But the early stages feel unimpressive, almost invisible, which is why patience feels risky at first. You're asked to tolerate uncertainty without evidence, to trust structure over sensation. The game makes this difficult on purpose. A system that rewards patience must discourage most people from exercising it. Otherwise, the advantage disappears. So the game fills the early stages with boredom, doubt, and comparison. It tempts you to intervene, adjust, optimize, and abandon. Intervention feels intelligent. Waiting feels naive. But waiting is often the smarter move. Intelligence shines in moments of action. Patience dominates in stretches of time. And wealth, unlike short-term success, is built across stretches, not moments. This is why emotional control matters more than raw intellect. When things slow down, emotion fills the gap. Anxiety whispers that you are falling behind. Impatience urges you to change direction. Fear convinces you that staying is dangerous. Those emotions are not signals, they are tests. The game tests whether you can remain steady when nothing seems to be happening, whether you can separate discomfort from danger, whether you can distinguish between lack of excitement and lack of progress. Most people fail these tests quietly. They leave without realizing they were close. Patience does not mean doing nothing. It means resisting unnecessary movement. It means allowing systems to mature instead of constantly resetting them. It means understanding that time itself is an input, not an obstacle. You are not taught this because patience is difficult to measure. It does not show up on resumes. It does not look impressive in conversation. It does not create stories worth telling in the short term. But the game keeps score differently. Those who endure long enough begin to notice subtle shifts. Processes stabilize, variance smooths out, momentum builds quietly. What once felt fragile becomes resilient, simply because it has survived long enough to absorb shocks. This is why patience feels lonely. While others move constantly, you appear still. While others talk about change, you focus on continuity. While others chase the next opportunity, you allow one path to deepen. From the outside, it can look like stagnation. From inside the game, it is positioning. Patience is not about waiting for the perfect moment. It is about accepting that most outcomes require more time than you want to give. The game rewards those who align with that reality instead of fighting it. This rule challenges a deeply ingrained belief that faster is better. In the money game, faster often means weaker. Quick wins attract attention. Slow wins attract stability. The game allows intelligence to open doors. It allows patience to keep them open. Once you understand this, you stop rushing decisions just to feel progress. You become less reactive, less emotional. You stop confusing urgency with importance. You allow things to unfold on their natural timelines. This does not make you passive. It makes you durable. And durability is the quiet advantage most people never cultivate. You realize that success is not about how fast you move, but about how long you can stay aligned without breaking, how well you can tolerate the unglamorous middle, how consistently you can show up without needing validation. The game does not reward those who burn brightest. It rewards those who last. When you see this clearly, impatience loses some of its power. You stop interpreting slow progress as failure. You stop abandoning structures that have not had time to prove themselves. You begin to play a longer game. And in a system where most people cannot wait, patience becomes one of the rarest and most valuable advantages you can have. Rule 7. Risk isn't avoided, it's managed. You are taught to fear risk as if it were a single thing, something dangerous, something irresponsible, something to stay away from if you wanted stability. From an early age, safety was framed as avoidance. Avoid mistakes, avoid uncertainty, avoid anything that might disrupt what you already have. So you learned to play small. You chose what felt secure. You followed predictable paths. You avoided decisions that might shake the ground. And for a while, this feels sensible, calm even. But beneath that calm, something fragile begins to form. Because avoiding visible risk does not remove risk. It simply replaces it with a quieter kind. The game does not reward those who avoid risk. It rewards those who understand it. There are risks you can see and risks you cannot. The ones you can see feel scarier because they are obvious. A new direction, a different structure, a break from routine. These risks announce themselves clearly, which makes them easy to fear. But the most dangerous risks are invisible, depending on a single source of income, relying on one skill set, building a life that requires everything to go right. These risks feel safe only because they are familiar. They do not demand immediate courage. They do not ask you to make a choice. They simply accumulate quietly until one interruption exposes how fragile the structure really was. This is why risk avoidance often creates the very instability it is meant to prevent. The game does not punish movement. It punishes concentration of dependency. When everything rests on one pillar, that pillar becomes a liability. Not because it will fail tomorrow, but because if it ever does, there is nothing else holding you up. Real stability does not come from eliminating risk. It comes from distributing it. This is the difference between recklessness and management. Recklessness ignores consequences. Management anticipates them. Recklessness leaps without structure. Management builds buffers, redundancy, and options. The game quietly favors those who think this way. You may believe that staying where you are is safer than change, but staying is only safe if the environment remains constant. And the game does not offer that guarantee. Markets shift, systems evolve, circumstances change without asking permission. A structure that cannot adapt is not safe. It is exposed. Risk management begins with awareness. Seeing where your life is brittle, where a single disruption would cause outsized damage, where convenience has replaced resilience. This is uncomfortable to examine, which is why most people avoid it. Avoidance feels peaceful. Preparation feels unsettling. But the game rewards preparation. Managing risk does not mean making dramatic moves. It means designing your life so that no single failure defines you. It means creating slack, alternatives, and margin. It means accepting small, controlled risks to avoid large, uncontrollable ones. The irony is that this often looks conservative from the outside. While others chase certainty through avoidance, you build it through flexibility. While others cling to what feels stable, you quietly reduce fragility. This is not glamorous. It is effective. The game does not announce when it is about to change. Those who avoid all risk are caught off guard. Those who manage risk expect disruption as part of the landscape. They are not surprised by volatility. They are prepared for it. This mindset changes how you feel about uncertainty. Instead of triggering fear, it becomes information. Instead of paralyzing you, it guides design decisions. You stop asking how to stay perfectly safe and start asking how to remain intact when things shift. That question matters. A life built on managed risk can absorb shocks. A life built on avoidance cannot. The difference only becomes visible during stress, which is why it is often ignored during calm periods. But calm periods are deceptive. The game allows long stretches of apparent stability, encouraging complacency. It rewards those who assume tomorrow will look like today. And then, without warning, conditions change. Not dramatically, just enough to reveal who prepared and who did not. Risk management is not pessimism, it is realism. It acknowledges that uncertainty is not an exception, but a constant. And once you accept that, fear loses some of its power. You stop being surprised by change. You stop treating disruption as failure. You begin to see it as part of the terrain. This rule reframes courage. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to design around it, to make choices that reduce downside without demanding certainty. Most people try to eliminate risk by standing still. The game quietly removes them anyway. Those who manage risk remain standing because they planned for movement. Understanding this does not force immediate action. It sharpens perception. You begin to notice where your life is overexposed, where you assumed safety without redundancy, where comfort replaced resilience. That awareness is not dramatic, but it is powerful. Because in this game, survival is not about avoiding storms. It is about building structures that can endure them, and once you see that clearly, fear stops dictating your decisions. You are no longer trying to be perfectly safe. You are learning how to remain whole. That is how the game is actually won. Rule 8. The rich play. Long games most people can't see. You are taught to look for results you can point to. Visible progress, clear milestones, proof that your effort is working. From early on, success was framed as something that should appear quickly enough to be measured, compared, and validated. If nothing happens for too long, doubt sets in. So you learn to favor short games. Games with fast feedback. Games with clear wins. Games where effort and reward feel closely connected. But the money game does not favor what is visible in the short term. It favors what compounds quietly over time. Long games are uncomfortable because they do not explain themselves early on. They offer little reassurance. They do not produce stories worth telling in the beginning. From the outside, they often look like inaction, indecision, or even failure. And that is exactly why most people never play them. A long game requires you to operate without applause, to continue without confirmation, to invest energy into something that may not reward you for a very long time. This runs against everything you were trained to expect. The game understands this psychology. Most people abandon long games not because they are difficult, but because they are boring. Nothing dramatic happens at first. No obvious signals appear. Progress feels slow and uneven. And in a world addicted to stimulation, boredom is interpreted as danger. So people leave. They switch directions. They chase the next opportunity. They restart again and again. Each restart feels productive, but it resets momentum. It erases the quiet advantage that only time can create. Over years, this pattern becomes invisible self-sabotage, not through bad decisions, but through impatience. Long games reward continuity, not intensity. They do not require constant effort. They require consistency. They ask you to stay with one direction long enough for second-order effects to emerge. Effects that cannot be forced, rushed, or predicted precisely. This is why long games look unfair from the outside. You may see someone reach a position that seems disproportionate to their effort. It looks like luck, like timing, like an unfair advantage, but what you are seeing is the visible phase of a process that began long before anyone was watching. Long games hide their early work. They compress years of quiet accumulation into a moment that appears sudden. And because you never saw the early stages, the outcome feels mysterious. But it is not magic. It is duration. The game rarely explains this because explanation does not help if you cannot tolerate the wait. Knowing about long games intellectually is easy. Living inside one is hard. It requires you to detach from comparison, to ignore short-term noise, to trust structure over sensation. Most people cannot. They measure progress by what others can see. They look sideways instead of forward. They abandon paths that feel lonely. And long games are always lonely at first, because very few people are willing to commit without proof. This loneliness is not a flaw. It is a filter. The game uses time as a barrier. Those who need reassurance fall away. Those who require validation redirect their energy. Those who cannot tolerate ambiguity choose shorter paths with faster feedback. What remains are the few who stay. Staying does not mean stubbornness. It means understanding that some outcomes only emerge when given enough uninterrupted time. You do not dig up seeds to check if they are growing. You allow the process to unfold. Long games demand this mindset. You must be willing to look wrong for a while, to appear slow, to be underestimated. This is uncomfortable in a culture that celebrates visibility. But invisibility is an advantage when you are building something that needs time to mature. The game does not reward those who rush to be seen. It rewards those who last. Long games also change how you experience pressure. When your focus shifts from immediate results to durable positioning, urgency loses its grip. You stop reacting to every fluctuation. You stop chasing every signal. You allow noise to pass without responding. This creates stability. Stability is not stagnation. It is the absence of unnecessary movement. It allows energy to accumulate instead of being spent on constant correction. Over time, this accumulation becomes strength. Most people never reach this phase because they leave too early. They confuse discomfort with failure. They mistake silence for stagnation. They assume nothing is happening because nothing is visible. But the most important changes are often invisible until they are irreversible. This is why long games feel asymmetric. A small number of people seem to benefit disproportionately. Not because they are smarter, but because they endured longer. They allowed time to amplify their position instead of resetting it repeatedly. The game rewards this asymmetry quietly. It does not announce when the long game has turned in your favor. One day, you simply notice that things feel easier. Those opportunities appear with less effort. That pressure has softened. Those outcomes arrive without constant pushing. From the outside, it looks sudden. From the inside, it feels inevitable. This rule reframes patience in a deeper way. It is not just about waiting. It is about committing to a direction long enough for time to become an ally instead of an enemy. Time punishes those who rush. Time rewards those who stay aligned. Once you understand this, you stop asking how to win quickly. You start asking what is worth staying with for a long time. That question changes everything. You become less reactive, less distracted, less impressed by short-term success. You recognize that most people are playing games designed to finish quickly, even if they never truly win. You choose differently, not because it is easy, but because it is durable. Long games do not feel heroic, they feel quiet. But in a system where most people cannot wait, the ability to stay becomes a decisive advantage. And once you see that, you understand why the richest outcomes often come from games most people never even notice are being played. Rule 9. The game changes when you change. How you see money. For most of your life, money has felt like the objective, something to pursue, secure, and accumulate so that life can finally feel stable. You are taught, directly and indirectly, that money is the finish line. Earn enough and the pressure eases. Reach a certain number and things settle down. But money has never been the destination. It has always been feedback. Money responds to how you position yourself inside the game. It reflects structure, leverage, timing, and alignment far more than desire or effort. When you misunderstand this, money feels unpredictable, elusive, inconsistent. When you understand it, money becomes informative. This is the shift most people never make. They treat money as something to chase, not something that responds. They focus on the outcome without examining the conditions that produce it. And because outcomes lag behind conditions, frustration builds. They try harder, push more, and become increasingly confused when results do not match effort. But money is not impressed by urgency. It reacts to clarity. When you see money as feedback, your relationship with it changes. Instead of asking why it is not coming, you start noticing what it is responding to, where it flows easily, where it resists, where it accelerates without force. These patterns are not random, they are signals. The game rewards those who can read signals. Most people interpret money emotionally. More feels like success, less feels like failure. But emotional interpretation hides useful information. Money is not judging you. It is reflecting the structure you are operating within. When you ignore that reflection, you repeat the same patterns and hope for different outcomes. Seeing money clearly requires distance. Distance from comparison, distance from panic, distance from the belief that money defines your worth. When you create that distance, you begin to notice how often money follows position, not pursuit. It appears when value is placed correctly. It stabilizes when systems are aligned. It grows when leverage replaces effort. This is why some people seem calm around money. They are not chasing it constantly. They are paying attention to what it reacts to. They understand that money is downstream from decisions made long before it arrives. The game does not reward those who want money badly. It rewards those who stop centering it emotionally. This feels counterintuitive at first. You are taught that focus creates results, that wanting something strongly makes it happen. But in the money game, fixation creates distortion. You begin to optimize for short-term gain instead of long-term structure. You react instead of position. Money responds poorly to desperation. Desperation narrows thinking. It shortens timelines. It pushes you toward immediate relief instead of durable solutions. And because desperation feels urgent, it disguises itself as motivation. Clarity does the opposite. Clarity widens perspective. It lengthens timelines. It allows you to see trade-offs without emotional noise. When clarity is present, money begins to behave differently, not because you forced it, but because you stopped interfering. This is where the game truly changes. You stop asking how to get more money and start asking what conditions you are creating. You notice where effort is being applied without leverage. You see where systems are fragile. You recognize where alignment is missing. Money reacts to these things whether you notice them or not. The difference is that now you are paying attention. This awareness removes some of money's emotional charge. Wins feel less intoxicating. Losses feel less personal. Both become information rather than identity. This emotional neutrality is not indifference. It is controlled. The game favors emotional control. When you are no longer reactive, you make fewer forced decisions. You stop chasing signals that were never meant for you. You begin to move with intention instead of urgency. Over time, this changes your outcomes. Not dramatically. Quietly. Money begins to feel less chaotic. Fluctuations make more sense. Patterns become visible. You see why certain moves worked and others didn't. You stop repeating mistakes driven by emotion. This does not make you immune to uncertainty. It makes you literate in it. Seeing money as feedback also changes how you define progress. You stop measuring success solely by numbers. You begin to notice stability, optionality, and reduced pressure. These are not glamorous metrics, but they are reliable indicators of alignment. Aligned structures produce calm before they produce wealth. This is why the game often looks unfair to those still chasing outcomes. They see results without understanding the conditions that created them. They assume luck, privilege, or shortcuts. What they miss is perception. The richest advantage in the game is seeing money clearly, not as a goal, not as proof, but as response. Once you understand this, you stop trying to impress the game. You stop proving yourself through numbers. You start designing conditions that naturally produce the outcomes you want. Money follows, not because you demanded it, but because you stopped confusing motion with meaning. This is the final shift. The moment money stops being the center of your decisions and becomes the signal that guides them. When that happens, pressure fades, confusion dissolves, and the game begins to feel navigable instead of hostile. You are no longer reacting to money. You are reading it. And in this game, that changes everything. You are never broken. You are never slow. You are never missing some secret quality that others had. You are simply taught how to participate, not how to see. For most of your life, money felt confusing because you were trying to solve it with effort, speed, and emotion, inside a game governed by structure, patience, and rules. You were told to work harder, stay busy, avoid risk, chase income, and wait for relief. And when relief never fully arrived, you assumed the problem must be you. It wasn't. What you've seen throughout this audiobook is not a list of tactics. It is not a shortcut. It is a shift in perception, a quiet but irreversible change in how you understand the game you've been playing. You now see that trading time for money creates limits. That busyness keeps you occupied, not free. That income moves, but ownership stays. That effort without rules leads to exhaustion. Those assets grow quietly while attention looks elsewhere. That patience outperforms intelligence over time. That risk cannot be avoided, only designed around. Those long games reward those who can stay. And that money itself is not the goal, but the response. This understanding does not demand urgency. In fact, it removes it. You no longer need to rush to prove anything. You no longer need to compare your pace to others who are playing entirely different games. You no longer need to exhaust yourself chasing outcomes that were never meant to be forced. Clarity changes how pressure feels. When you understand the rules, confusion fades. When confusion fades, panic loses its grip. And when panic dissolves, you gain something far more valuable than motivation. You gain choice. Choice in how you apply effort. Choice in what you build. Choice in which games are worth staying in. This does not mean the path ahead is effortless. It means effort is no longer wasted. It goes where it compounds instead of disappearing. It feeds structures instead of habits. It creates durability instead of dependence. Most people never reach this point because it requires stillness. It requires looking at the game honestly instead of emotionally. It requires accepting that some truths are uncomfortable before they are liberating. You accepted that discomfort, and that is why things will feel different from here. You will notice when motion is being confused for progress. You will recognize when urgency is being used as control. You will see opportunities others overlook because they are too quiet, too slow, or too boring. You do not need to announce these changes. You do not need to explain them. The most powerful shifts in this game rarely look dramatic. They look calm, intentional, patient. This is not the end of your journey. It is the end of confusion. From here forward, money stops feeling like a mystery you must chase and starts behaving like a system you can observe. You will still make decisions. You will still learn. You will still adjust. But you will no longer be guessing blindly. You are no longer just playing. You are aware of the board, and once you see the game clearly, you never go back to playing it the same way again.